Mr. Luetkemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The title of our discussion today is How the Complexity of the Tax Code Hinders Small Businesses. I'd like to ask Mr. Hall, do you have any statistics on how many small businesses are deterred from even getting started as a result of the tax code or as a result of the complexity of trying to get started with all of the different rules and regulations and besides taxes that are you have any idea of that?
Unfortunately, don't have any statistics on things that haven't happened, but that is very scary to me. And back to my comment in Boston with that seminar, those 16 people who started small businesses, my concern is that there are lots of people out there who may also have been laid off or changed positions and may have an idea for a consulting service or a small business, even a manufacturing idea, something that they may have in another economic setting, may have chose to do that because the economy is down now, availability for credit is down now. Maybe some of those things are not happening more today. This is strange, but they're not happening more today than they've ever not happened before. And that's very concerning because, again, I think Ranking Member had talked about 70% of all jobs come from small business. And to every piece of discouragement to starting that small business is another discouragement for a new job. So although I don't have statistics on that, I would be afraid to know what that statistic is.
Well, a lot of people think being the owner of your business is a really great thing, and it is, but whenever you start looking at all of the problems that are associated with being a business owner, of having to deal, especially a small business owner, having to deal with the tax situation, getting an accountant, working with the insurance side of it, the financial side of it, then you have to deal with the employee side of it and the egos and the mismatch of all of the stuff, and then you wind up with trying to either produce or sell a product to the public on the whims of the public. I mean, people think it's really neat to be a small business person, just sit in their shoes for a little while. I'm sure all of you can empathize with that. As a small business owner myself, it is it is quite a chore. But I was just curious if you had some statistics on how big a barrier the tax code actually was to people actually getting into this. But along that line, then, I guess at least on my next question of what would be an alternative to the code we have right now. We realize it's cumbersome, and I appreciate the efforts of the chairman. I certainly support his efforts in trying to simplify it and having this hearing. Are there other things that we can do? Are there other types of taxation that we can go to? I know that a couple of you alluded to in some of your testimony. If each one of you just take just a couple quick seconds and I'll start with Mr. Stathis on the end.
Well, they run the gamut. You've heard VAT tax, similar to what they use in Europe. You've heard a flat tax.
Do you have a preference? I guess I'm under the clock here, so I apologize for jumping in.
A preference. I think that one of the other gentlemen alluded to what the upheaval would be to the economy and the way it is right now. That if you tried to make a massive change to, say, a flat tax, it could cause, I think, more damage than it did good. I think that's where we are right now. What we need to do is simplify what we have and maintain the structure, the general structure, but just simplify it.
Okay, great. Mr. Hall?
I think the same thing. I think not only would it not be practical, but it probably couldn't pass. I think simplification, like the home office standard deduction, back in the day there was no standard deduction in lieu of itemized deductions. That's a nice roadmap for other potential standardized type deductions. There could be standard deductions for depreciation. There could be easier deductions for retirement plans that we've talked about. Moving some of those deductions to the entity level, like Mr. Blacklead mentioned on the self-employed health insurance deduction. I think the code itself accomplishes so many different things, not just revenue, but social issues as well. I think just simplifying the issues now to make it easier to comply with is the path to go.
Okay, great.
And I would concur also. Obviously, other tax systems have advantages. They've been beneficial to other countries, but the cost of transition could be horrendous. Our tax system, many of the decisions that have been made in this country over the last 50 or 100 years have been based on this tax code. And if we changed it, just as when we changed the passive activity rules on business investments back when we had the savings and loan crisis, there can be some unintended consequences. But I think you can simplify the existing code. Congress has made it complex. One of the things overall I I think that would help in addition to the specifics of simplifying it would be to have a better process for Congress to vet potential changes in the tax code. The problem is this code has been built by individual Congress people and their staffs, and in many cases they're not well connected, they do not have common definitions, they have not been vetted either with any kind of cooperative body or particularly with the IRS that's going to have to administer them. Often the IRS ends up, and I've served on the IRS Advisory Council for a number of years, and often IRS has thrown a tax law that they really don't know how to administer, and that's added to that complexity.
Just as a follow-up, that you piqued my interest in, and I'll let Ms. Chin Ryan here in a second, but it would be neat if we would have a time frame within which an account, you could plan for your future with your accountant to say this tax is only going to go into force 2, 5, 10 years from now, so that all of a sudden we in Congress decide tomorrow we're going to change the tax code, and your whole future plans are screwed up because of what we did. I think that something like that.
If you do make a change, it's absolutely imperative that it somehow be transitioned in over a period of a number of years, which unfortunately will, of course, add to the complexity for that transition period.
Yeah, Ms. Chin.
In my written testimony, the examples I gave a solution. For example, the definition of accounting method, cash versus accrual. A solution could be if a business is $5 million or less, anyone can use the cash basis regardless of the type of entity. That would help reduce it. The different categories of income, a solution would be to eliminate the passive income and go back to the earned and other income. Same with Social Security is to, based.
So you prefer to keep the present system and simplify it with some changes and improve it?
Well, I think, as a business owner, you have long-term and short-term goals, and I think, to completely rehaul the tax code is going to take a long time, but in the short term, there could be a possible solution as we're parallel doing the long-term fix.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.